So Kerry asks me to go with him one day to a speech he was giving at the Brookings Institution. One problem with Kerry is that he thinks he is so smart. And he said, I didn't know it was going to be this big national story. I said, well, neither did I. But you told me to go do the interview. Well, then I want you to resign. And I said, fuck that. I'm not resigning. I said, man, you better have your checkbook ready.
Show me the money, baby.
I said, if you think that I'm going to make this easy for you, you don't know me at all. I told him. I did. So there was an employment lawyer in my lawyer's firm, and she's like, oh, you have these guys by the balls. So they were like, we want you to resign. We want you to resign. I said, I'm not going to resign. I'm not going to do it. You can't fire me because I have your signature right here. So they said, we want to offer you a buyout. And I said, it better be handsome. And they made me an offer I couldn't refuse.
Yeah. You're in the right neighborhood to say that right now.
And
so
then I went
where'd you go?
I worked for myself for a year. And then the 2008 election brought the Democrats back to power. And then I got a call from John Kerry that he's going to be the new chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee.
How long had you known him?
I had never met him.
Oh, really?
But he followed my story, my whistleblowing.
Oh, so he liked it.
Mm-hmm.
He liked that you were doing that.
He liked it.
That's interesting because this was the administration that later had the Justice Department charge you.
How do you like that?
Yeah.
So he says, I'm going to reconstitute the Senate Foreign Relations Committee's investigative function. Would you like to be the chief investigator? And I said, I'd love to be the chief investigator. I said, but I'm going to go after the CIA. And he said, well, you do what you think you need to do. I said, all right.
So you work for John Kerry?
Uh-huh.
How was he?
Difficult.
Yeah.
You know, there were only two times, I guess, where I offered him unsolicited advice. Like, you got to stop, I would tell him. There was one situation, like every Lebanese in Washington was calling me, like, you got to tell Kerry to stop calling Bashar al-Assad my dear friend. You got to stop saying that. He's a genocidal maniac. So I said, Senator, I said, every friggin' Lebanese in Washington's calling me. You got to stop calling Bashar al-Assad my dear friend. He goes, well, we rode motorcycles together to the Golan Heights. I said, be that as it may, he has a bad habit of slaughtering his own people, and the Lebanese are really steamed about it. He's like, all right. And there were several other things that I did. I mean, it wasn't just giving him advice, but you know, I went to Afghanistan to do a study on the heroin poppy crop.
Oh, boy.
And I'll tell you, nobody liked it that I was doing this. So I fly to Afghanistan. And as a senior staff member, I have the rank of brigadier general, right? So they got to like drop everything and cater to my needs. Seriously.
So you're investigating potential malfeasance around these fields?
Afghanistan used to be a net food exporter. And as soon as the U.S. takes over, they're producing 93% of the world's heroin.
That's right.
I'd like to know how the fuck that happened.
Yeah, I would too.
Yeah. Nobody wanted to tell me. So I get to Bagram Air Base and I said, I'm going to need a helicopter to Lashkar Gah. And they were like, oh, can't do it. Too dangerous. I was like, no, we're doing it like in the next hour. You have to be a dick with these people sometimes, right? Because they think that they can just pacify you until it's time to leave. And I'm like, no. I outrank you. I'm telling you, get a pilot and fly me to Lashkar Gah. So we get down there. And it's a god-awful place. But man, I'm telling you, as far as your eye can see, all there is poppy. All of it is poppy. So I said, I want to talk to a poppy farmer. They were like, are you nuts? And I said, no, I'm serious. I want to talk to a poppy farmer. So we go out to the poppy fields. We see this guy cultivating his poppy. So I go up to him and I said, I got to ask you a question, which was incredibly naive. I said, why don't you grow crops that have 2 growing seasons instead of poppy. You could grow tomatoes or onions or pomegranates. And he goes like this. He goes, the Americans told me in 2001, if I told them where the Arabs were, I could grow all the poppy I wanted. I go, what Americans told you could grow poppy? And my military handler's like, we got to go. Bogey's in the area. We got to go. And he physically pulls me into the Jeep and takes me back to the helicopter. I was like, okay. So I make an appointment to go to this DEA secret site. Somebody had reached out to me and said, hey, we heard you're doing this study and you might want to come out here. We can have lunch nearby. I was like, okay. So I get in my car. I drive out to Timbuktu outside Washington, friggin' far. And there's this secret DEA facility out there. So there are 3 of them. We go out to lunch. And they were like, you're in over your head. I said, how do you figure? They're like, there are very powerful forces that want that poppy to be cultivated. And I said, why? It's 93% of the world's heroin. And they said, because almost all of that heroin goes to Iran and to Russia. And we want them to be addicted to heroin. It weakens their societies.
Almost all of it goes to those 2 places, and it's 93% of the world's heroin?
Our heroin comes from Colombia and Mexico and Ecuador.
What about the Andretta, though, getting the heroin from Afghanistan?
That happens too, but it's small scale. So I'm writing all this up, and Kerry's like, nah, we're not publishing that. And I was like, they got to him too. There was a worse episode. I get a call one day from a noted human rights activist for one of the big human rights organizations. And he says, can I see you? I said, sure. He said, I can't come up to the Hill. It's got to be at a private location. So I went to Johns Hopkins University and we met in a vacant classroom. And he's like, listen, I've stumbled onto something big. He goes, have you ever heard of the Dasht-i-Leili Massacre? And I said, sure. Northern Afghanistan, November 30th and December 1st, 2001. We arrested, in Mazar-i Sharif up north in Afghanistan, 2,000 Taliban soldiers gave up. All 2,000 all at the same time. So there's not a prison in Afghanistan big enough to hold 2,000 people. So we figured we have to divide them up and put them in regional jails around the country. So we asked Abdurrashid Dostum, this fucking traitor who was with the Northern Alliance, then he was with the Taliban, then he's with the Northern Alliance again, now he's with the Taliban again. So he said, I'll take him. We'll take him out into the desert and we'll just hold them there until we can divide them up into smaller groups and send them around to local jails. So they put them all in shipping containers, right? To put them on 18-wheelers. Nobody put any holes for air in the shipping containers, and there's no food and water. And so they get out to the desert, they open the shipping containers, and one of the 16 survivors said that the bodies fell out like sardines from a can. Well, we always believed Dostum did it on purpose, right? Why would you feed and clothe and house 2,000 Taliban prisoners when you can just suffocate them? So what was new was this human rights activist said, I have a witness who was 12 years old at the time, and he says that there were 2 men there at the site of what's called the box up, where they were putting them onto into the containers. 2 men wearing black T-shirts and blue jeans and speaking English. Who is going to be in Mazar-i Sharif in November of 2001 wearing blue jeans and black T-shirts and speaking English?
Yeah, I mean, duh.
Yeah. So I took the information and I wrote a letter to the CIA asking for clarification. And
I see why they charged this guy.
I did it under John Kerry's signature. So it was, sincerely, John Kerry, Chairman, U.S. Committee on Foreign Relations.
Oh, so you didn't sign it yourself?
No.
Okay.
No, Kerry signed it. I waited weeks for a response. Finally, one of my colleagues comes in and he says, "Hey, the agency responded to your letter." I said, "I just checked my mail an hour ago. I didn't see any response." He said, "No, they classified it top secret." Well, at the time, I only had a secret clearance on the committee. I said, "What did it say?" He says, "It said, go fuck yourself." And I said, that's how they want to play. And then Kerry calls me. "Hey, come over to the office." So I go over to his office. He goes, "Are you trying to take on the CIA on this Mazar-e Sharif thing?" And I said, "This is a legitimate investigation into a massacre that the CIA may have had perhaps a tangential role in." He's like, "Yeah, kill this right now." I go, "Okay." Killed it. That happened several times with him because all he was ever concerned about was becoming Secretary of State. He talked about it constantly. I'll give you another example.
He was an egomaniac.
Oh, in the worst way. Give you another example. In that year between when I left Deloitte and when I went to the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, I was working for myself, but I had an office in a major Washington consulting firm. The head of it had been a White House chief of staff, and he liked me. He liked my politics. And so he said, "Hey, I've got a vacant office. You're welcome to use it, and you can have a half-time secretary at his expense." Very generous. So I'm there. One of the members of the board of directors was Governor Bill Richardson, and I loved Richardson.
You like that guy?
Oh, he was awesome. Awesome.
Had some interesting ties to Jeffrey Epstein, but we'll leave that there.
He had problems.
Yeah.
But he was an awesome guy.
Okay.
So he says to me one day, he goes, "Hey, listen, you free for lunch?" I said, "Sure." We go to lunch. He goes, "You're never going to believe what happened." He goes, "I had Obama over at my house for Christmas."
Wasn't he like Secretary of Energy or something?
Secretary of Energy,
Yeah.
Ambassador of the United Nations, and Congressman and Governor of New Mexico.
Got it.
I had Biden over my house. Watched the Super Bowl. Not Christmas. Super Bowl.
Biden.
Oh, sorry. Obama. And I go, "Yeah." He said, "We went for a walk around the ranch at halftime." And he put his arm around my shoulder. And he said, "Bill, if you can deliver the Hispanic vote, Secretary of State." And I said, "No way." He goes, "You want to be Deputy Chief of Staff?" I said, "I'll take it." He said, "Okay." I said, "Okay." So the election comes up. Obama wins. The day after the election, Richardson comes in the office and I go, "Mr. Secretary, congratulations." He's like, "Oh my God, I can't believe it. I can't wait. It's going to be great. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. We're going to peace in the Middle East." And he's going on and on. Okay. I'm in the shower a week or two later and I'm scrubbing my hair. I get the radio going and they said, "President-elect Barack Obama today named Hillary Clinton Secretary of State." And I was like, "Oh, what? Hillary Clinton?" I go in the office. I go, "I'm so sorry." He goes, "They're offering me commerce." And I said, "That's okay. We can work with that. There's the Foreign Commercial Service. There's the International Trade Representative." He goes like this. He goes, "What the fuck do I know about commerce?" I said, "No, seriously, we can do this." A couple of weeks later, again, I'm in the shower. Secretary of Commerce designate Bill Richardson withdrew himself from nomination today, saying that, he was not whatever. I was like, damn it. So I didn't go to state, but then Kerry calls and I go to the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. So Kerry asks me to go with him one day to a speech he was giving at the Brookings Institution. One problem with Kerry is that he thinks he is so smart that he can veer wildly off of his prepared text and everything's cool. Okay, and that's never the case.
Read the prompter, Ron Burgundy.
Read the prompter. That's why you employ all these people to write for the prompter. So we're at Brookings, and he's doing his speech, and then he says something about Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. And he says, you know, I was supposed to be Secretary of State. I had President Obama over to my house for Christmas, year before the election. And we went for a walk.
Kerry says this.
And he said to me, John, if you become the first senator to endorse me, Secretary of State. So I endorsed him, he says. I was the first senator to endorse Barack Obama, he says. And I had a long relationship with Hillary Clinton. It caused and I'm going like this in the audience. Like, stop talking.
So wait, did he just steal the story?
No.
That actually happened.
Obama promised 4 people Secretary of State.
Kerry, Richardson, Clinton eventually.
And the guy who died in his office, the peace negotiator.
What peace negotiator?
Bosnia and Middle East. Oh, come on.
I have no idea. What, was he a senator?
No, he was a lifelong diplomat.
No idea.
We gotta Google this.
Peace negotiator, Bosnia, Middle East,
Yeah.
U.S. He pulled the same stunt on 4 people.
Brutal.
What a talented son of a bitch.
Brutal. Brutal.
Oh my God.
And let's see.
Daniel Levy?
No, U.S. peace negotiator. And Bosnia put, because otherwise we'll get all these.
Let's see. Richard Holbrooke?
Dick Holbrooke.
Yeah.
Richard Holbrooke.
So he promised 4 people.
Yeah.
Well, 2 of them eventually did become.
What a Washington thing to do.
That's a very Washington
Brutal.
thing.
You know, Harry Truman once famously said, if you want a friend in Washington, buy a dog.
Yeah. It's a great quote.
Yeah.
Thank you for watching the video, guys. If you haven't already subscribed, please smash that subscribe button and check out this clip's full podcast episode by clicking here